Good morning YouTube, and welcome back to the Wackadoo Racing channel. So today we got something a little bit different. We're making a little bit of a house call, and if you know me, that's pretty rare. But so is the opportunity to make a new friend and work on a really unique project. So without further ado, let's just get to it.
Oh, your neighbors must love you.
Yeah, not so much. I am out here today with my new friend Mo.
What's up guys, how you guys doing?
So, long story short, Mo has some really interesting projects that I would like to be a part of, and today we get the pleasure of being able to help. So we're gonna go ahead and jump right into it. We're gonna start looking at some of the projects that he's got going on here and see what it is we're trying to accomplish and introduce you to the project that I'm most excited for him building, which is how we got introduced. But for the moment, let's go ahead and just introduce the one we're working on today.
Awesome guys, so I'm gonna show you some of the cars. This is my brother's 521. It does have an awesome SR swap in here. Let me show you real quick. So it's a pretty sweet motor swap. He's got the mounts in there already. We do need to set up intake manifold side, turbo, but the motor is in there for the most part. So after that, it gets a little bit easier, right?
This thing is going to be a freaking blast.
Yeah, super sick build. My brother's currently in Texas, so he doesn't have time for it at the moment, but he'll get to it, it'll get done. This is the main project of the day. So this is my MGB GT. It's a 70 with a fish mouth grill, rear option. But what's cool about it is it has a pretty sweet swap I'm gonna be showing you guys in a few minutes. What happened with the car was actually, I took it to a shop, needed intercooler lines, fuel lines, and just a few little things here and there. It was a turbo car, but then unfortunately, when I took it to the shop, the guy literally took out the motor, took out a bunch of other stuff, basically stole my parts, and now I was left with a shell when I got it back. So rebuilding it, and that's why we're working on it today, and that's the main objective. And then
So what are we trying to accomplish? What's our main goal today?
So our main goal today is actually get the motor back into the car mounted. He made mounts, but they're not in the right location. Nothing fits the car. Nothing is even basically serviceable. So you can't service an alternator, for example. So we're removing the motor so we can actually even get an alternator to fit, get an exhaust to fit, intake manifold can clear. And then after that, hopefully if we have some more time, we can mount the fuel parts, like basically fuel pump, fuel lines, and go from there. Just slowly but surely type of thing. Really excited to get this done. It was my daily driver. Put it into a project mode for a bit, but it hit the fan. Hopefully trying to get it done by the end of the year and go from there. It's just a simple NA setup. What's in there I'll show you guys in a few minutes, and after that we can get the car going. It's gonna be a blast. What's great is I can use this car to track for a bit to get an idea of what I really want. So with that being said, the main project that I'm actually super excited about is my GT6.
And this car here, this is how Mo and I met, and this is from the GT6 forum. We pretty immediately realized we were going to be kindred spirits. What's your plan for this car, Mo?
It's actually another turbo Miata swap, but I'm going with the 1.6. It revs a little bit higher. It does have a little bit of flaws, but Dakota went with the 1.8, which is obviously way torquier. So obviously has more power output too, but honestly I think I can hit 250 with it, which is going to be plenty of power per motor. And I can also get a lot of different feedback on it. So, for example, this compared to my MG has sway bars, different types of suspension, different rear end altogether, different drivetrain, so everything's gonna be a bit more cooler. And also, because I have these huge wheels, this car's a bit sluggier, and also it's gonna be way less horsepower, so not as much per motor. Still gonna be plenty of power for the car with the swap that I have in it, but for now, the GT6 is what I'm really excited about. It's gonna be a fun track car, awesome build, really detail oriented too, so I'm really stoked about that. Yeah.
What you're seeing here is us checking for clearance for most of the external components of the motor, mostly looking to see if we could clear the alternator, the headers, and the intake manifold versus the steering rack and the frame rails and the hood. Where the guy in the shop had placed the motor was too far back and down and was going to end up binding in all of those places, while where we ended up selecting to put it was much more feasible. So we needed to find out where we had room and where those motor mounts needed to end up. Here you'll be seeing us offsetting the motor to one side so we can go ahead and cut off the motor mounts that were already welded to the frame by the shop. The last thing you'll see here is us actually measuring the center of the crankshaft to the frame rails to make sure that it's centered in the chassis. And then using a digital angle finder, we make sure that it's nice and level in the engine bay. And then the last step is welding in the actual motor mounts themselves.
It appears that I lost several pieces of video throughout the process. I probably just hit the record button and didn't check to make sure that it actually was recording. But something that you don't see in the time lapse that did happen is that morning I had made sure that I had inverted my machine. On the Millimatic 211 you have the ability to switch power sources between your 110 power and 220 power. Now I've owned this machine for about 5 years and I've never run it on anything other than 220. I've never switched it to the 110 capacity that it has. I, being a welder full time, should have remembered that fact from the very beginning. But later that evening, after more than several drinks, lacking the wherewithal to remember having changed it that morning, I set off to try and weld the extremely thick motor mounts with my presets for 220 using 110, and ended up making a pretty huge mess that I'm not proud of, and it's bothered me the entire week. How much did it bother me, you might ask? Maybe enough to simulate the same type of welding environment at my shop to make sure that it was actually a mechanical issue and not a technique issue, so I don't make the same mistake twice.
There you go.
While I could have just as easily have not mentioned the mistakes that I made, that would ruin the credibility of what we told you from the very beginning, which is that we would post whether it was success or failure. Not everything that we attack is going to be an instant success, and that's what happened here. Unfortunately, the mistakes that I made happened to be on someone else's car, which makes it that much worse when I was trying to help. But inadvertently created more work for Mo. With that being said, Mo's very capable and was patient with me the entire time and very cool about the fact that I was making a mess. He's going to go back later, box in the motor mounts, and clean everything up, and with his attention to detail, I'm sure it's going to look great. At least by the time we were done, the motor was sitting in the car, both straight and level, which is a step in the right direction so he can keep moving forward. Hopefully we'll be able to see those cars again at a later date. Hopefully we'll be able to, at some point, go to a track day with him. But if you want to follow along with his builds, I'll leave the information in the description below so you can follow along with him on Instagram. Mo is a super cool guy, building some really unique cars, and it was a privilege to go check him out and meet him in person. That being said, that's all we got for today. Wackadoo out.